the American military-industrial complex, French sex chat rooms, and giant robots in Japan. What do they all have in common? Stick around and find out. This is Seemingly Unrelated. Welcome to another episode of Seemingly Unrelated. I am one of your hosts, Jason Heat. I am joined, as always, by the captain of the expedition, Dr. Mr. Professor Sir Andrew Johnstone.
Ahoy, that's me.
And our producer and editor and Gen Z ambassador, Naomi.
Hello.
If this is your first time listening to Seemingly Unrelated, Dr. Mr. Professor Andrew Johnstone has come in with a audio lesson that connects seemingly unrelated topics about history, politics, culture, and society. I come in knowing absolutely nothing, and I learn along with you. Effectively, Andrew knows a lot, I do not, and Naomi is somewhere in the middle. We are here to help promote intellectual curiosity, combat misinformation, and make a lot of jokes. So, Andrew, I want to find out where we are going today. But first, I do note, Naomi, that on your face, it looks like you raided the treasure chest of Atlantis. What is happening this evening that warrants such a, you shaming Andrew and I in our lack of looks?
Yeah, you're not very glammed up for this podcast like I am.
Disagree.
So I accidentally, as a good freelancer does, double booked this with a day rave. So currently that's where I'm meant to be right now, but I'm here because I'm responsible. But I thought I'm going to get ready first. So as soon as it ends, I'm sprinting to the day rave. So.
Day rave is a term I've never heard before, honestly.
Agreed.
To be honest, that's not a term I would say, but I was trying to make it appropriate that you would understand what I was doing. But is that not?
Well, okay.
Wait a minute. Hold on.
Yeah. You
now it's offensive.
so much is now needs to be asked. First off, I've never heard the phrase double booked with a day rave, let alone a day rave. Number two, you are using day rave as a euphemism for the old heads. What are you actually doing?
Well, I was going to say like the genre of music and the event, but I was going to say like a garage event. But then I thought
garage, like the style of music.
Yeah, but like not that you wouldn't understand that, but I thought maybe day rave was a more accessible term. But then you were like, "What's a day rave?" So
you said when you say you're going to a garage thing, I just imagine that you're going to someone's garage and you're gonna hang out.
Hence the term day rave. But anyway, just if you want to see how glammed up I am, you can look on the YouTube. But I'm glad that we've addressed it, so I didn't look crazy.
Andrew, what is on today's docket?
I've been reading the news recently.
I'm so sorry.
And it seems to me that everyone is in agreement on this very critical concept that everything is terrible, and the blame squarely seems to fall on the internet. It seems as if the tech industry and its grip on this internet thing has been the downfall of society. And that has really spurned me. That's really sparked in me a very simple question that I'd like to answer, which is, what is the internet? How did it get here? And what is that the only alternative that we have to this global connectivity that we enjoy, that it must be this thing that we simply call the internet? So, Jason, what's the internet?
Al Gore's dream gone wild.
I love it.
It's just the internet. Ooh, so many directions. Yes, it's the dilapidated corpse of everything that Al Gore once believed in.
I mean, that's a perfectly reasonable definition of the internet. Are you, Naomi, I don't know if you're familiar with this. Do you know what Jason's referencing by bringing up Al Gore and the internet? Why those two things? First of all, do you know who Al Gore is?
I know
no.
I know the name. I feel like this is stupid. I don't know a lot of
Jason, it's
general
okay.
knowledge.
First of
I'm
all, she's born in the
sorry.
United Kingdom. Let's remember, he's an
know.
American politician.
I know the
and
name.
He stopped
I should probably know.
being vice president when she was 1 year old. This is a perfectly reasonable thing for her
I'm
not
not
to know.
judging Naomi. I am reflecting upon my own mortality and aging based on the lack of cultural understanding of what was an incredibly important political figure. I mean, the 2000 elections was a fundamental shift in the geopolitical landscape and sort of directly leads to a lot of the electoral college issues that we have.
I'm just a
right
girly
now.
who goes to day raves. I don't know.
No. Yeah, no. Al Gore was the vice president under Bill Clinton in the 90s. He had been a senator for a number of years before that. He went on to run for president in 2000 in what was a hotly contested election that was maybe stolen by the Republicans. I've never seen that happen before.
He was a noted environmental activist and leading voice in the fight against climate change. He lost, and famously is memed as having said that he created the internet, and that was never really true or what he meant, but we all latched onto it because it is a ridiculous statement.
That's where we could start, though.
I feel educated.
Let's start with
Thank
that story.
you.
Yes. The story of the internet is actually one of the great boring ass stories of history, in that the mainstream narrative is factually accurate, but is not contextually fleshed out and really kind of just depressing. So, in short, the internet, as we understand it today, began in the 1960s as a U.S. Department of Defense-backed network called ARPANET. ARPANET stands for, make sure I get it correctly, Advanced Research Projects Agency Network. And it was really intended by the Department of Defense for universities to share research data with the DoD from across the United States very quickly, right? So all these contracts that the DoD had with, say, Stanford or the University of Illinois or whoever, NYU, they wanted to be able to share the research between all of them and then get that research data back to the Department of Defense.
Remember a world where the government not only wanted to get research from universities, but probably also helped to fund that research and those universities, and created an entire technology specifically on the value of the providing contracts to universities and getting intel from them? It sounds fantastical.
Yeah, it was a time to be alive, and also universities were free for people to attend. So as the story goes forward, it really, the universities start taking up as a way to talk to each other rather than with the Department of Defense. Makes sense. Who wants to talk to the Department of Defense? They're not that exciting. And a young senator, Al Gore, does in the Senate lead the charge towards opening up access to this network beyond just government and university usage, and making like private companies able to latch onto not just ARPANET, but other networks that had been created for the same or similar purposes. And then all of that kind of accelerates in 1990 when Tim Berners-Lee over in Europe announces he had a big idea that we should take all of these networks, these interconnected networks, internets, and we should make some sort of a web of these networks across the globe, perhaps globally wide. And if we had one standard language that all of these networks could communicate, like could display information, perhaps a hypertext markup language, then that would be a true boon to like research development and education. And that's when we got the World Wide Web and HTML at that point.
And I'm just going to put out here a spoiler alert. I don't know that this is where this is going, but I have a guess. The subtext of this whole episode is going to be and this is why we can't have nice things.
This is why we can't have nice things. Ah, gosh, that's a good question. I mean, you know what? We'll come back to that at the end. We'll see if that's correct.
That's my theory. I'm going to posit right now that the ultimate takeaway of this lesson will be, oh, what bright future we could have had if not for ourselves.
Yeah. If not for ourselves. You know what? Yes, I really would like to hear you reflect back on that when we get to the end. All of this then puts us to, in 1995, the Microsoft Corporation bundles its web explorer, Internet Explorer, its web browser, which can display hypertext markup language as text, image, sound, video, etc., with their new operating system, Windows 95. And the people bought it. They suddenly had access to this thing called the web, such that by 1998, Congress came together and they passed the Internet Tax Freedom Act, which put a moratorium on sales tax and VAT for all internet sales, which then turned it into Amazon's hell, because that's exactly what Jeff Bezos was lobbying for. He then was able to undercut every bookstore because he didn't have to pay taxes on the things he was selling.
And now for something completely unrelated.
My family was a noted late adopter of technology. This has come up before. And so my first experience with the internet was going to my cousin's house in Savannah, Georgia, where I would patiently wait what may have been minutes but felt like hours for images of Usagi Yojimbo, Stan Sakai's comic book rabbit, to slowly materialize on the screen and being like, this is the greatest. We have truly achieved next level geekery here. Also downloaded a lot of WAV files of quotes from Babylon 5 and MASH.
This is correct. This is, Naomi, this is a little window into like 1997 internet. I spent once, I connected to the internet at 7 p.m. because then no one would be making phone calls and no one would interrupt the conversation and the computer wouldn't disconnect. And I began downloading a file that would finish downloading at 7 a.m. It was a 12-hour download. And it was a 2-minute and 15-second MPEG-1 video clip, not an MP4, an MPEG-1 encoded video clip of Dragon Ball Z that was from Japan with no subtitles, just in Japanese, but was not from an episode that had yet aired in the United States. And I was high as a kite.
I was going to say, was it worth it?
I was like, oh, baby, I watched that clip
Jason shrugged as if,
20,000
like, of course
times.
it was worth it. It was a stupid question.
These are the roads that we plowed so that you could drive them.
So that story is like, yeah, that's what happened. Like, unfortunately, when we look into where did the internet come from, yeah, that's it. Like, it's a blend of, you know, the government uses this idea in an attempt to do some kind of, you know, something military based. The rumors that the DoD originally used it as has something to do with like nuclear weapons is wrong, especially since no nuclear weapons in the United States are like networked. They're all air gapped on purpose so that like no one can just hack into our nukes. Can't hack into it if it's not plugged in. That is the point. But and then nerds at universities sort of picked it up. And then once Congress was like, hey, you can make money off of this, and like a stupid amount of money, like that's what happened. Trillions of dollars.
Right. A useful tool created by a combination of government and the education apparatus ended up becoming a cesspool due to a combination of capitalism, greed, and manipulation, and our general inability to look out for ourselves, which totally leads me to believe that AI will remain a useful tool that will only benefit all of us in the long run and never be used as a tool to subjugate those of us with blatant misinformation. I don't understand why people are so concerned.
I'm getting a slight sense that Jason might have negative feelings towards the internet. Am I
don't have
picking up on the right thing there?
I have negative feelings about people. And that makes me sad.
So I would argue that actually the thing is we don't know what the internet really is. This is the thing. We think of the internet as this ubiquitous, amorphous thing that everyone contributes to. But when we look at that history and we look at how it functions, it has actually always been intended to be controlled by a limited number of people. With the DoD being the first, then with the universities being the next leg. And when Tim Berners-Lee said, he didn't patent any of his ideas for the World Wide Web. He released it to the public domain in an attempt to open the internet up as this thing that everyone could participate in. But once Congress in the United States passes the Internet Tax Freedom Act, it goes firmly into the hands of the Jeff Bezoses of the world. Like, it goes straight into the most wealthy hands. So the internet really, and all it is, by the way, because we haven't even answered that question, what is the internet? It's just the packetization of information. It is literally just taking data, putting it into a metaphorical box, and then shipping that box to another computer. That's all the internet does, using transmission control protocol and internet protocols. It uses 4 stages. I'm not going to get into the details of them, but that's literally all the current internet as we understand it is, and its purpose has always been to be controlled by a small number of individuals.
But it's functionally, it was the creation of a genuinely new medium for the transfer of information.
Aha! So, we will put a pin in that, Jason, because we're going to come back to that in 1 second.
Well, call me a donkey and put that on my tail.
Yeah. So, its spread in popularity, right, is owed to all of these changes in, like, the availability of the tech and in the passing of this moratorium on tax.
And, of course, the Tom Hanks Meg Ryan movie, You Got Mail.
Actually, pretty important movie, honestly, in the popularity area. Point to Jason. Can we put a ding in the edit right here? Thank you. No, it's those early adopters and the things that they loved. What do you think a bunch of university researchers in the 1970s loved above all else that made the internet really, like, appeal to them as a thing?
Porn.
No, Jason, it's not pornography.
Sure. I will say, I do believe that pornography has been the driver of a tremendous amount of technological advances,
Right?
and particularly
Absolutely.
the internet. And I also think that grad students working late into the night who can't have social lives because of perhaps the rigorous nature of their schedules and their lack of social skills also appreciated having easy access to pornography via the internet.
Yeah. I mean, you've nailed who these people are, right? But it's not just pornography they look for, Jason. What are those same nerds today? Where would they get their social engagement from?
Oh, Dungeons and Dragons.
Yes, Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah, games. They love video games, and specifically, they really fucking love fantasy and science fiction video games. The spread, like, all of the people who invented, like, the rest of the technology that makes the internet work, like Unix and all these things,
Desperately wanted to live in a world that was not our own.
correct. They love, like, they're making games like Zork, which is a adventure text game. But the first game...
Let's pause real quick. Naomi, have you ever heard of an adventure text game?
Actually, I think I have played something like this in school. Do you remember Stig of the Dump?
No!
I think that's really English.
Tell me more.
And now for something completely unrelated.
Stig of the Dump?
I don't remember if it was a
I hate
play
it.
or a book.
Wait, let me channel my inner Gen Z. That gives me the ick.
I gotta look this up.
Stig of the Dump, there was a game that we played on the big computers at school in IT lessons where each step, it told you something, like you were in a new section and then you had to, like, cross that path. Is that what we're talking about?
Basically.
Yes,
Yeah.
that is a text adventure game. Stig of the Dump is a 1967 novel that tells the story of a boy who discovers a caveman living in a dump in the local chalk pits near his granny's house. The two become friends and enjoy lots of building and creating using the leftover materials in the dump.
It's a bit dodgy.
God damn it, I love this country. I love this country.
Well,
That is the most stranger danger.
Crazy. Like, and we talked about it all the time in school. I went to go see a play of it. We played the game all the time. So basically, they're telling us to meet strangers in the dump and learn to build with them.
So these games would be sent to each other via email or via this internet system, and people could play them and then send notes back. And then in 1978, the first totally online video game debuted. And I know for a fact, Jason, that you have seen this game in action. That game was called Multi-User Dimension 1, or MUD 1. Do you remember Dennis?
Yes, of course. So what Andrew is referring to is that one of my best friends and a former housemate of mine used to play these games late into the night, and I would just see constant streams of green text scrolling in front of him, and he would play, and I would lay on the floor in front of his room, and I would pontificate about the world while he mudded. So I don't know a single fucking thing that was happening on the screen, but it provided a great canvas for me to wax philosophical on someone who was paying just enough attention to me to not actually care about what I was saying.
Yeah. A multi-user dimension is really just a Dungeons and Dragons campaign run entirely through a text client. Like, that is the short and the long of it. Like, there are packages that you can follow, like, but all of the users are on at the same time. They have a shared chat box. There are shared goals. They work on it together as a party. And that, every single legend of the building of the internet, including Tim Berners-Lee, including the Bill Gateses, all of these guys were into MUD at some point in time in their lives. The impulse.
Sounds like they were all hanging out at the Stig of the Dump.
They were all at the dump with Stig, making it happen. That impulse to connect these machines together to play games really was at the heart of a lot of what motivated these creators. So you said that this was just like, this is the thing, and like people took advantage of it, right? Like,
the internet is a medium in which we exist, and is there a medium in which we exist that we have not polluted?
Right. So, we speak of the internet as a medium, and I would argue that that's not quite right.
I just want to say, when I say medium, I think more like water or air. I literally mean that it is a new theoretical space, and much like we have managed to find ways to pollute the air and to pollute the water and to pollute the land, we have also managed to find ways to pollute the data sphere.
Right. And I would say that that's an interesting perspective, but it is not a new medium. And two, the way that we have specifically designed this version of the internet is what makes it polluted, because there are alternatives that have existed and existed extremely successfully that did not create nearly the level of pollution. Jason, have you ever heard of, and I know the answer is no, le Minitel?
Well, then why did you ask me? No one likes a rhetorical question. At least give me the opportunity to potentially, like, you're setting me up for failure.
Yeah. How about this, Jason? When do you think France received its first internet connection?
1973.
It's very early for something designed by the United States that wasn't allowed to escape the United States until 1980s.
I don't know. Great. Well, now I know I don't know.
You don't know. It's fine. So,
and you know, I don't know.
You're not too far off. See, in France, the history of the internet is a little different. Back in the 1970s, they became very interested in a technology called video text. Hi, future Andrew here. You can tell because I've got these nice fingerless gloves. So this section, I tried to explain what Minitel is and what makes it different, and I don't know what I was doing. So let me try to do this in brief. The way the internet as we use it now works is the server packages up data, all the code, into a neat little package, and it sends it to your machine, and then your machine unpacks it. So your machine is interpreting all of the data from the server. So when you click on something or you tap on something, your machine is doing a lot of the heavy lifting. It's just getting the data, that's it, the raw code sent to it. Under the video text system that Le Minitel used, instead the server is doing all of the work and it's just broadcasting the image to your terminal. So when you make changes, when you click on the shoes that you want to shop for, that's all happening on the server side, and you're just seeing that change. So your local machine is a dummy machine. It doesn't do anything. It just interprets what is sent to it as a video broadcast rather than as a fully functioning CPU, GPU, all the things that go into your computer that needs to interpret that data and display it. That's all I needed to say. I don't know why that was so complicated, but hopefully this helps. Does that make sense? Like how it's a little bit different than the internet as we would use it today.
No, but I don't know that it needs to. It's much like other people's lifestyles. I don't know that I have to be able to fully understand it in order to respect it.
That's fair. So they would then be able to...
Take note, shitty homophobes.
Excellent. Good work. Hey,
I'm agitated today. You know what? I do have some trauma related to the internet, Naomi.
There you go, Naomi. You were right.
Revelation of the century.
So, the National Phone Company, okay, the Poste Telegraphe Téléphones. Not going to pronounce anything French correct. Not because I can't, but because I refuse to. Me and France have beef. The pétété, as it were. Also, at that time, while the government was looking into this technology and what they could do with it, the pétété, the people in charge of the post and telephones, was having some budgetary issues. And the biggest thing that they were really complaining about, the biggest fat that they were looking to cut from the budget, was the goddamn phone book. They were publishing these stupid phone books every year, and it cost so much money to update it because most of France is quite rural, with the exception of a few large cities, particularly in the 1970s and 80s. And you've got to figure out if people's phone numbers are up to date and correct and connected. And there are 28 million phone lines to sort through, and every single person in France got a phone book with 28 million phone numbers in it, not just your local one.
Yeah, you never really think about the phone book as one of the lost industries of our society.
Yeah, well, it's definitely gone. But it cost a lot to maintain it, and then you had to publish it every year and mail it to people's houses, which is expensive. 28 million phone numbers in a book? That's going to cost a lot. So the French government decided to take advantage of these two things happening at the same time. And they came up with a plan to replace the phone book with a video text service. They committed to giving every home in France a free Minitel terminal. That was a brown suitcase that you could just open up, plug it into the phone line, and you could access this digital phone book from the convenience of your home.
And note that we still don't have free Wi-Fi everywhere.
Right. Yeah. Still a problem. No. I mean, it was a bold, massive project. And it was France's attempt to, build their own version of, a Silicon Valley by having it be this state-sponsored system. And they launched in 1980. the first set of consoles that would connect to the quote-unquote Minitel system.
I just want to see if I have this right. In the interest of actual efficiency and moving forward outdated technology into new technology, the French government decided to invest in new technology, offer new services, and by committing money and funding, probably created not only new jobs, but an entirely new sector, a new industry in the country to replace all of the jobs that would be lost and increase the overall efficiency of their country, saving themselves money in the long run by not making the phone book, and also stimulating the economy by creating new infrastructure. God, so crazy. What a fucking play. That sounds, wow. Whoa. That's groundbreaking. That's crazy.
By the way, it took him about 4 years and 8 months to get in the black on that one, by the way. That's just sending everyone one Minitel, which was, just a suitcase computer that could, with just keyboard and a screen, really, that could hang out for like 10 years and was so much cheaper than shipping them a phone book every goddamn year that needed to be updated. And then something really revolutionary happened in 1984, Jason. The kiosk system was instituted. And now it became possible from 1984 to make bank transfers or purchase things with credit cards directly through the Minitel system. You can do a direct-to-mail order from our shop to your home. Just put your credit card in, and again, it will be billed through the telephone company.
And in that moment, the Columbia Record Service was born.
Exactly. No, don't explain it, Naomi. Don't explain it, Naomi. It doesn't matter.
I was just going to say shout out to all my fellow aging millennials.
So that meant in 1984, you could check the weather, buy tickets to the cinema after looking up what was on at the cinema, pick up get your grocery shop in order and send it to the store to have it arranged for you before you arrived, buy a new pair of shoes after shopping through a catalog of images, all from a briefcase that was in your room.
What in the name of George Orwell is the dystopia you are describing?
I know. It's truly amazing. I love the Minitel. And all of it was, as you said, made possible by the government backing everything up. It didn't just create the network. It gave everyone the terminals, and it never lost a fucking dime on this system because people were using it so much. They were paying the telephone bill to the government, and they made their money back. It never cost the French, up front, obviously, they had to spend millions of francs to get this thing to start. But that was it, man. It was just a money-making machine for the government, who then poured that money into expanding access to the service. So by 1985 or so, there's about 2 million Minitels in people's homes, which pretty big. But the thing that really made Minitel pop was very early in 1981. So, a couple of engineers in Saint-Malo, where one of the headquarters was, they were working on a experimental messaging system. They invented instant messaging, and they called it Gretel because of Hansel and Gretel. You would follow the breadcrumbs to know who was there.
Let's be clear. That's a terrible name.
Oh, really bad. So the original function of Gretel was to send memos between offices that were in the government. But before the service even launched, a hacker whose hacker name was Big Panther, shout out, great hacker name, he broke into the system and he sent the actual first instant message ever sent by an individual outside of the French government in the world ever, using his chosen moniker of Peggy la Cochonne, which translates to Peggy the Slut. And he sent out a lewd message. The first instant message was from Peggy the Slut, and it was basically like, come have sex with me.
Yeah, of course it was. For a good time call. Also, Gretel would be a very good name for an instant message service about missing children.
No, Jason, it was a really good name for what it became, because the guys who were behind it said, I bet people would really like an instant messaging service where they could send lewd messages to each other. And they pivoted from making a memo system to making what would eventually become known colloquially as Minitel Rouge, or Minitel Pink. It was sex chats.
Yeah, cool. That's obviously a useful service and has been proven out over the course of the next 50 years that is a service people want. Gretel is a bad name for the sex chat.
I also like that the government's funding a sex chat, which is interesting. But the French are very open with that stuff.
Oh, no, it was very controversial, but also the government was like, no, we don't interfere. If people want to have sex, they're consenting adults.
Yeah.
I'd rather them support people getting laid than people losing their life savings on gambling. When we think about what we support governmentally here in the United States and the fact that gambling is often subsidized, or the lottery is something that is a think about that. The fucking lottery is a governmental program where people give their life savings in increments for the possibility. It's like the baseball metaphor of finances, right? Like you just constantly strike out. If only one day maybe you will hit a home run.
Right. So all of the engineers who basically built Minitel, including Michel Landauret, the guy who came up with Gretel, said Minitel was built on the sex industry. Gretel's sex boards would have a queue of over an hour to get in. And one single telephone bill from 1984 was for 225,000 francs, which today is 60,000 euro, or just about $100,000.
And what's crazy is that was one teenager who got onto his dad's account.
Basically. The estimate from the government at the time is that a small messagerie, a chat board, running 150 hours of connections per day, so not 150 hours per person, obviously that's not how it works, but you think 24 hours, if you had fewer than 10 people all day connected, could pull 600,000 euro in today's money per year in income, and it could be run on a single Minitel computer at a person's house.
It is very funny to me that the online sex chat does have a name that sounds like it's a massage parlor.
Yeah, messagerie. And once the kiosk system was instituted, legacy media companies started setting up live sex chat rooms with professional sex workers, to meet the demand. By the 1990s, the largest single industry on Minitel, worth billions of francs a year, was sex chats and eventually pornography. So the original internet, the first actual internet, was based on this wonderful pink Minitel messagerie system where people in the privacy of their own homes could, I guess, masturbate all day. That's probably what they were doing, honestly. It also caused a lot of problems at work. The documented cases of like people basically getting in trouble at work because they were using this is a long story, and I really encourage everyone to take a look into it. But that's one alternative internet, one which uses the video text service and is really focused on connections between humans. I put in air quotes really heavily. But if we take a trip across to the other side of the world, there's another alternative history baked in to this system.
And what happened to Minitel?
Bill Gates and Windows came in and they just smashed the system, and they created these PCs that were indeed more versatile. Like the PC is more versatile than the Minitel. It just it couldn't compete. And in 2012, the last Minitel network was shut down.
It's like the BlackBerry and the iPhone.
Yeah, it actually is 100% the same. It is well within the same realm.
Hear that, people of France? Listen to what they took from you. You could have had horny people paying your taxes for you.
Yeah. So, Jason, that's how the Americans have their military-backed but ultimately private money system. The French have their socialist aimed but by providing opportunities for small businesses to engage. But what about the Japanese, Jason? The Japanese have their own unique system because, surprisingly, Japan is pretty slow to adopting the internet. They're not using internet technology until about as the earliest as 1985. So 5 years after France and 15, 16 years after the United States is when the little baby internet seed is planted in the Japanese mindset. And I would argue that there's a very good reason for that, Jason. And that's because different alphabets. So, computer code, like BASIC, right? Which was like the first really widespread computer code, is written using the Latin alphabet. If you were to code today in any programming language, the vast majority of them use the Latin alphabet and the Arabic numeral system. That's just how it works. But Japanese people do not use the Latin alphabet. I mean, they have Romanji, which is like the romanization of Japanese words. So you'll see stuff that uses the Latin alphabet, but you're supposed to pronounce it Japanese style. But for the most part, they use kanji, right? So it's this multi-hundred character long system. Yes, there's hiragana and katakana, but let's focus on kanji. And the thing about kanji is you have to be able to see really precise detail in order to be able to distinguish different kanji from each other.
And if you want to go back to one of our earliest episodes about CAPTCHA, you can hear a little bit about why sometimes that level of detail in images is difficult for computers to recognize and understand.
Even today. Yeah, absolutely. It's a real problem. So until 1980 in Japan, if you had a word processor or a computer and you wanted to write in kanji or even katakana, which is the phonetic alphabet, you had to have an extra adapter plugged into your computer called a kanji RAM that was created by a corporation called ASCII. It just wasn't a way to see it. And even the kanji ROMs, the katakana were in order to execute it, they had to make them half size. It's really complicated. It's just the computer could not both understand the Latin alphabet in order to execute code and also display meaningfully the Japanese alphabet. It just didn't have enough memory for both of them. So enter the Nippon Electric Corporation, NEC, who were keen to make a computer that used a microprocessor. So instead of big processing machines, you just use microchips that could be run on a single board, a PC, basically. They wanted it to be useful for work purposes so that they could sell it to all the corporations so that every salaryman in Japan would have to buy one of these things for their office.
Every salaryman?
Salaryman, right. We've mentioned this before. Salaryman is a colloquial term. I don't think I've explained it before, though. It's a colloquial term in Japan for sort of white-collar workers who are at best middle management, but tend to be lower on the spectrum, who they live for their salary. So all of their life is sort of centered around their job. And they're there for 80 hours a week kind of stuff. The work-life balance is terrible.
It's like people sleeping on the street outside their office so they can go back to work in an hour vibes.
Correct. Yeah. So they need it to display the entire Japanese alphabet. It has to be able to accurately display kanji, which is very difficult. They also were hoping the machine could play video games so that they could sell it to people for their homes. And so it needed to have a full color display. And that is where we get a very early 16-bit computer called the PC 9801. These machines could hold images that were really detailed. Like with pixels, creating artwork could be really, beautiful in a lot of situations.
I am just waiting for this to become another venue for porn.
Fair enough. So at the same time this happens, in February of, so they're 1981, we get the PC-88 and the PC-98 lines debut. They have this ability to full color images, and they can show kanji. This development of these PCs coincides the same time, February 1981, in Shinjuku, which is a major neighborhood in Tokyo. It's sort of the ideal Tokyo you think of, busy, bustling. February 81, there's a release of the first Gundam movie. Gundam, in short, big franchise in Japan about humans moving into space, but still being bound by war, so they make giant robots to punch each other in the face in space. I think that's the gist of Gundam.
I'm sure you're very surprised, listener, to hear that a popular Japanese IP involves giant robots fighting each other.
It's also great. I highly recommend it as long as you stick to the Universal Century stuff. I won't elaborate. So it's the first big movie, and there's like maybe 400 or 500 seats in the movie theater for this screening. And like 27,000 people show up.
Is this going to be the beginning of closed circuit television?
No, that'd be pretty cool though.
Oh.
But what it is the beginning of is really anime as like a global phenomenon. So like Yoshiyuki Tomino, who's the creator of Gundam, he goes up in front of this crowd and he's like, I have to calm this crowd down because the police are here. There's way too many people. This is an absolute nightmare. And he gives this speech that's supposed to calm the crowd down, but it does the exact opposite. He calls it the new anime century, and like everyone's gonna be in anime now. They can't stop us. This insane like call to action, and it is legitimately like there was anime before 1981, but this is when it becomes like, well, what you were saying, a bunch of IP where robots punch each other in the face. Like it starts here, February 22nd, 1981, in case you're wondering. So we've got PCs now that can do artwork at a time when people are really into like this new fad, this new thing that has like cartoons and collectibles.
Flash in the pan. It'll never last.
It'll never last, exactly. And they are really going to come together. The PC-98 in particular is like...
They're going to join together. In France, they were going to come together. That's an essential difference.
I believe that is correct. Yeah, the PC-98 is like held up to this day by like video game nerds and anime nerds as like the home of anime-based media that wasn't TV or movies. Like everything else flows to these PCs. Incredible games that I have played. I mean, a Sharp 68,000 is like an incredible machine. So here's the problem. It's like the early 1980s. So who can afford a PC-98?
The problem is that Japan has this, and here in America, we were fucking mudding. I mean, that's the real technological inequality.
It is funny that there is this like technological leapfrog game where like it's literally the difference between 1978 and 1981. We're talking about 3 years. You're right. Americans are like click clack clacking with like gray or green text.
Yeah, we're trying to get out of the stig of the dump, and they're literally going on adventures with skyscraper robots. This is a discrepancy.
This is a discrepancy. Absolutely.
One could make the case that this is injustice.
So who can afford these fancy new computers? has got to be
The salarymen, but they don't have time to play it because they are sleeping and working. Like a laundry rinse repeat cycle, and they can afford something that they can't actually enjoy.
You are correct in identifying that it's the salarymen. But the thing that they don't have time for, because they have to spend all their time working, is
sex.
Girlfriends. Correct.
They can't procreate.
So what emerges as one of the most popular anime-looking things on the PC 98 architecture, something called eroji, or erotic games.
I told you. I was waiting for it. I knew it. We were going to get to the point. I nailed it. I nailed it. Just like they're all not nailing things because they're on the computers. I did nail it from the very beginning. You were like, what is the internet birthed off? And I said, it's birthed off of porn. And you know what? You were like, maybe not. But then every time we come back, there it is. People want to procreate. But we don't want well, that's not true. Some people want to procreate. Most of us want to have the enjoyment of the feeling of procreation without the resultant consequences of the actual creation of children.
And some people want to play weird, freaky video games.
Yeah. You probably, this is very much hand in glove with the emergence of hentai and all of the other really graphic adult content that is associated with anime. So, the average cost of a eroji video game was, in 1984 dollars, $85 per game.
You could actually take a human out to dinner for that amount of money.
Yeah. It's insane. So, and the games were getting, they were getting a little bit better. Like Dragon Knight was one of the early hit series, which was based on Dungeons and Dragons and actually had plotting and structure. And the plotting and structure just would end in naked ladies. And then so they get better because you have to justify the cost. But then as the internet technology emerges in Japan, we see the first adopters are guys sharing eroji games for free with their friends on message boards. And so all of the earliest internet in Japan is two things that are weirdly related in this case, which is salarymen sharing these erotic games with their friends because they can't afford to buy more than one game. So they're just swapping with their buddies. Kind of like an updated version of leaving porn in the woods or whatever.
I'm sorry. I was going to say kind of like an updated version of sharing your Netflix password. Where the fuck did you go?
We now know that Andrew leaves porn in the woods, apparently.
What the fuck are you talking?
No,
I'm sorry.
Jason.
No. I legitimately don't know what you're referring to.
We had a window into Andrew's childhood there. I feel.
You will have to take a moment to explain. What the fuck are you talking about?
And now for something completely unrelated.
That is a really common story. You can look it up, though I don't recommend you do. That for people who are millennials, you were a kid and you were going out in the woods, there would just be porn magazines left over from, one assumes, older teenagers who also went out into the woods because they didn't have any privacy in their homes, and they would just leave the porn there for the younger kids to find. It's a very common story. It's not one I personally experienced.
Just
I never found porn in the woods.
your uncle's dressers like a normal fucking child.
But that's the whole Japanese internet until the mid to late 1990s is just these exchanges of imagery. So, where's this all heading, Jason? What's this common theme that brings it all together? And I've got a very simple question for you that will answer it, Jason.
Okay.
What day does this episode come out?
I don't do the scheduling. I have no fucking idea. Why? Right? That's not fair. I don't know. What?
This episode drops on Tuesday, the 1st of April, 2025.
For the listeners, Jason's just scowling at Andrew currently.
Is this an April Fool's joke?
This is the April Fool's episode because the seemingly unrelated is that porn invented the internet, which is the same thing you've been saying since episode 2. It's not even something unrelated or seemingly unrelated. It is clearly fucking related.
First off, what? Secondly,
Listen, we had 3 options in front of us, Jason, were what to do for an April Fool's episode.
Could do
One of
nothing.
them was that I could make something up, but I thought that was
I said that was misleading for
not
the
fun.
listeners. 'Cause I thought if I listened to an hour of Andrew explaining fake history, maybe I'd tune out halfway through, and I just think that's the
So I
real
got it
history.
right. So the joke is just that
you got it right immediately.
You made me listen
You not
to you
only
for
you
an
got
hour.
it right immediately, you got it right like 9
Yeah,
episodes
you just had to
ago.
listen to Andrew talk for an hour about something you already knew about.
Well, all right. Cool. Great. This feels like everyone's going to get a lot out of this. So let me just clarify. Everything that you said is true. The April Fool's is not that you lied.
Oh yeah, there's
Okay.
We don't
there's
lie
no
about
factual
facts
inaccuracies.
on this podcast.
Then what
We don't lie about facts.
It's not just about porn, though. What I've heard is that you provided 3 different versions of the internet that all do eventually lead to sex. But my big takeaway is a few things. One, you can learn a lot about the cultural values of a country based on the road, including sex, that leads to the creation of the internet. In America, it is a byproduct of the military-industrial complex. In France, it was very specifically actually a sort of governmental service that related to the sex industry, but it was about the idea of making this sort of human connection and also creating a system of communication. And in Japan, it was about anime. And it's very interesting to me in listening to this that, yes, they all do work their way through to porn because that has been the driver of technology for about as long as we've had the concept of technology. The thing that I did learn today is that the one that took was the American take on the internet. Our entire internet is built on a system that was meant to be, let's gather data for the purpose of monitoring and security. So my big, I know it's April Fool's, ha ha ha, but my big takeaway from today is remember who benefits. Anytime, I was going to say, just remember who benefits. Anytime that you are accessing one of these systems or services, someone is benefiting from you sharing and engaging with your information.
So we're saying we want to go back to France, where the government got loads of money, but kind of through porn. I feel like that's kind of a good system, no? Because it funds the services, but also that's it's morally weird.
Ultimately, if the point of a government is to provide safety and security and services for its people, which I believe that it is. That's the contract, that's the covenant. It's not a business. It is a service organization that you pay to be a member of by taxes, and then you get benefits of by being a part of it. Then ultimately, the idea of the governmental services paying for itself and also paying for other services is better than paying individuals lots and lots of money, and then the government is on the hook for providing all these services, and then they go, well, we can't afford these services. I would rather be paying the government if they are going to give me all the great benefits and services. Why do I sign up for a membership to a place? It's because it provides me great value and services, and then I support it with my, monthly check.
And I do want to add an addendum to that, which is to say, remember that this is just how the system works now. It is not how the system has to work. There are alternatives. They have existed. And no matter what, you'll still get porn. So don't worry about it. Most of what the traffic on the internet is today is porn. It's just going to be there anyway, gang.
As the great philosophers behind Jurassic Park said, porn finds a way.
Yeah.
Well, I learned about Stig of the Dump. I wish I had.
Classic bit of English classroom knowledge. I have no idea why we were learning about it.
I also did learn that our entire world's internet infrastructure is built out of the American military-industrial complex, and I did not know that. I mean, I knew it, but I didn't know it. I didn't get it, and now I get it. Andrew, was there anything in the researching of this episode that you'd like to offer to folks who are interested in providing their own research so that maybe they can fuck with their own friends like you tried to do with me?
So there's a great book called Minitel that if you're on the YouTube, you can see the image of it, but otherwise I'll just tell you about it. It comes out of MIT Press, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. They have a great series, a couple of different series, but this is from their platform study series, of really accessible academic texts like this one that are actually quite, it's not bogged down in a bunch of nonsense like language. Nobody says like prosopography or the semiotics of blah, blah, blah. It's written for humans to read, but it's still got the rigor and the detail that you would expect from like professors and other researchers to write. And this paperback book was, I think, only about $20 anyway, so it's not priced at an insane academic level. So I really recommend everyone check out well, first of all, check out Minitel from MIT Press so you can learn more about the Minitel Rouge Messagerie or whatever else they were doing in Minitel. But some of their other services, because I've actually found that to be super helpful. Authors are Julian Mayland and Kevin Driscoll, in case you want to pick up this exact book.
Very cool. Well, we thank you for interrupting your porn time to listen to us. We hope that you interrupted. I mean, if you are multitasking, if you're taking care of yourself and listening to this podcast at the same time, don't tell us. We don't want to know. But I'm going to let you get back to doing what you do best because this episode is wrapping up. So before the big finish, you can support this show by signing up for our brand new Substack. Just go to seeminglyunrelated.substack.com and you'll get information behind the scenes stories, things that were cut from an episode and sneak peeks about what is coming up. We will be back in 2 weeks for another episode. And if you want to enjoy a bonus episode this month and you have not yet, please sign up for our Patreon, Seemingly Unrelated Pod, for Naomi, for Andrew, and of course, the H to the E to the A to the T, Jason Heat. Stay curious.
Pinch punch first day of the month.
Excellent. Seemingly Unrelated is a Life's Little Murder Boards production. Created and hosted by Andrew Johnstone and Jason Howard. Audio production and editing services provided by Naomi Cohn. Our artwork is by Megan Zemet. The theme song is Irizumi by Pistol Jazz. To find out more about everyone involved and access the show notes for this episode, visit us at seeminglyunrelatedpod.com.
This might get cut. You say hand and glove. I think it's cock and hand, cum and glove. But be it as it may.
Yikes. I think let's just keep me saying hand and glove and you laughing because I think that let's have some subtlety.
Gets to the jizzed.
Jesus Christ.
Even if that doesn't make air, that's the best pun I've ever done.
Yeah, I'm happy for you, but it's going to be cut. I'm so sorry.
I'm happy for you, but this is getting cut.